Today is all about the piccolo. Hi, I'm a music teacher and this is my life. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and welcome for those of you who might be new here. In some of my previous videos, I've spoken a little bit more in depth for beginners when it comes to instruments like flute and saxophone. Well, today the focus is on the piccolo, which is a wind ensemble or marching bands or orchestras, typically highest pitched wind instrument. And so if you are someone who's a flute player and you might be starting to play the piccolo for the first time, then this video might have some practical tips and tricks that will help you on your way. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. So I've gone ahead and grabbed my piccolo out of the case. And if you saw the thumbnail, then the biggest difference between my piccolo and my flute is that my piccolo is made of wood, whereas my flute is made of metal. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble it now. There's no foot joint, it's just the head joint and the body. And I like to hold my piccolo sort of at the bottom. So again, I'm not squeezing too hard on the keys. You could hold it from here, do whatever's going to be best for you. Some people might like to hold it up here and do that. I just don't find I have as much control, and I kind of worry it'll fall out of my hand when I do that. So I like to hold it in my right hand and my thumbs sort of behind that A flat key. And then I'm just going to take the head joint and I try to like shimmy it down to where it feels secure. Now I'm using a Yamaha 62, not the fanciest model of piccolo, but it served my purposes in university. I haven't found the need or felt the need to go purchase a different one. But another difference that you will see on some piccolos, yours may not have it, it might though, and mine actually has this little golden triangle and it serves as a little arrow. And there's also a little dot at the bottom of the metal of the head joint. So in theory, it gives you like a visual indicator of how you could line up the piccolo. Now, the reality is that it needs to be set up comfortably for you. So for example, I know that when I put that arrow on that little dot and I put it on here and I play a few notes, say I play a low F, at first, it took me a little while to adjust to the placement, but you can always make little adjustments. You want to do what's best for you and not feel like you absolutely have to follow that. But it's a good guideline if you're just starting. Another big difference you'll notice, at least for wooden piccolos, is that there is no lip plate. Now, I've played metal piccolos that had lip plates before, so if you're going from flute to a metal piccolo, then that might be a little bit of an easier adjustment. And I say a little bit because there are still a lot of differences. Obviously, it's much smaller, so let's talk about how to hold it next. Holding the piccolo is pretty similar to holding the flute. It still is going to be on the right side of our body, and you have to have the same idea of having your left hand wrap around comfortably in a nice, natural-looking C shape. The difference here, of course, is that your keys are all closer together. And similar with my right hand, it has that nice neutral C shape. And similar to the How to Hold the Flute video, which I can link in the description, I can draw a straight line from my knuckles all the way down to my elbow. So I'm not cranking the wrist underneath or keeping it too high. And it's a similar idea for the left hand. If I take my left hand off the instrument, now I do actually have a straight up and down hand here because just for my ergonomics, it's the easiest and most comfortable way. But if I take that off from my wrist all the way down to my elbow here, it's a nice straight line. So again, I'm not up here and I'm not all the way into my body either. Now, if you're first starting the piccolo, you'll also notice that none of the keys are open hole. So I've had a closed hole versus open hole flute video, but I have never seen a piccolo with open hold. So all of them will be closed. And also I have a C piccolo. The lowest note that I can play though is a low D, which obviously on the piccolo sounds a lot higher, but I don't have a foot joint, which means I don't have any of the C keys or anything. The E flat key, however, is built into the bottom of the body. So the lowest note that I can play is a low D. So now I'm going to give you some practical tips for the piccolo. So the first thing I'm going to suggest is if you're going to be playing flute and piccolo in the same practice session, Personally, I like to start with the flute and then transition to the piccolo. And the reason for this is because when we are playing on a much smaller instrument with a smaller tone hole, that means that our embouchure needs to be a lot more focused. And when you first start practicing the piccolo, you'll definitely notice that the muscles in your face that support that embouchure get tired very quickly because your muscles are now adjusting to a very different instrument. And again, it doesn't seem like that much when you're just first playing the first few notes and getting warmed up, but 20 minutes, half an hour in, and you're definitely going to feel it. So I would recommend starting your practice session with flute and ending with piccolo if you plan on practicing both of those instruments within the same amount of time. Another practical tip that I recommend is when you start warming up, you want to do something similar to what I was just doing. You want to start with the lower notes that have a more relaxed embouchure and just play a few to get the air moving through the instrument and then gradually move up. So I'm starting on the lowest D here, and I might do a chromatic scale. Just to see how it feels. And if I keep going, I can actually start to feel my embouchure tense up a little bit. And that's fine because I need to direct my air in a more focused way across this tone hole. But that's why it can be nice to start with those lower notes because we don't have to feel quite as tensed up or as firm. So it's a nice place to start. Now, with any wind or brass instrument, it's also really important that you not use a tuner to tune yourself until you've warmed up. So definitely get the air moving. When you first pick up a piccolo or flute or any wind or brass instrument, at least for me, I notice that when my instrument is cold, it tends to be flat. So if I do 5 minutes of warming up and I tuned before that and I tune again, then if I tune before I warm up and I set it so that it's in tune, and then I play for 5 minutes, try it again, I'm going to end up showing up on the tuner as being sharp. So definitely warm up before you actually go to tune. Another recommendation that I have is to start by not only just warming up on low notes, but also to use longer tones. So if you're warming up with half notes or quarter notes, that's going to be a nice way to get the air moving without tiring out the embouchure too quickly. So if I were to do, say, a low D major scale, and if you're someone who plays with vibrato, it's going to feel a little bit different, but you'll get the hang of it pretty soon. When it comes to cleaning the inside of the instrument, I definitely know that it's going to take a different fabric than my flute. So I have a metal cleaning rod here, and I actually use gauze. So sort of like medical gauze. What I like about it is that it's a very thin material and it's very easy to fit through the entire piccolo. I want to talk briefly about some of the different materials that piccolos are made of, and then I'll wrap it up here. And then if you want another video about piccolos, let me know. Now, before we wrap up this video, I want to briefly talk about the material of piccolo and answering the big question that I'm sure a lot of piccolo buyers may have, which is what type of piccolo is going to be best for me? To answer that, I would say think about where you're going to play. So for example, I bought a wooden piccolo that has metal keys. This is pretty standard for wooden piccolos to have metal keys. But the reason why I chose to buy a wooden piccolo is because if you're playing in indoor venues with a concert band, a wind ensemble, or an orchestra, the wooden piccolos tend to have an easier time blending in with the other instruments in the ensemble. On top of being easier to blend with the other instruments, the wood also just creates a slightly more warm sound and tone to it. Now, if you're going to buy a metal piccolo, that would be great if you're playing in outdoor venues or if you're in a marching band, because in a marching band, while some marching band will perform indoor concerts, metal piccolos are just more durable against the elements. I would not play a wooden piccolo outdoors, particularly if you live somewhere cold. I live in Canada and it's literally snowing outside. This in extreme cold weather can actually cause the wood to crack, and I do not want that. So if you're playing in outdoor venues and it's going to be cold or facing rain or wind or anything like that, then metal's the way to go. Now, there are some cheaper options, like I mentioned earlier. I actually, before buying this, I was doing sort of a rental to own sort of program. So I went to this music store and I played this one. And then I had another one. I forget what the brand was because this was years ago, but it was a similar color, but it wasn't really made of wood. It was almost like a plasticky type piccolo. And there were some pros and cons. Obviously, it was more affordable, but I just didn't like the sound. And I ended up taking it home with me, trying it for a couple of weeks, and then I drove out of town back to the same store and said, no, I've changed my mind. I definitely want a wooden piccolo. So you have to pick the one that's going to match your needs and your performing contexts best. So I'd say wooden if you're in a wind ensemble or concert band or an orchestra. If you're in more of a marching band or you want to have a more piercing sound, then I would say metal. That plasticky one, I would say avoid it because the quality is not as good as a wooden one, and the metal ones are quite durable. So I would say you can kind of not consider that unless you think that it's going to be the perfect compromise between the durability and the tone of a wooden one, but you want to be mindful of your price point. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments, or if you'd like more videos about the piccolo. And thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss any more videos. Be sure to give us a follow over on Instagram as well, and I'll see you right back on this channel with